Welcome back to Remote Life. My name is Han Talbot, also known as Han Week's World, and today we'll be chatting with Jen Ruiz. Based in Puerto Rico, Jen is a 5-time best-selling author on Amazon, TEDx speaker, and solo travel expert, helping travellers and digital entrepreneurs to work from anywhere while seeing the world. In this episode, we talk more about how Jen got started on her own remote life journey, the different ways of making money on the road, and how you can also take your first steps to going remote in 2022. So grab a coffee, a tea, or something stronger, and let's get started. Jen, thank you so much for joining us on the Remote Life podcast. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Kind of just starting to readjust back to the days of the week again. First week of January and all the rest of it.
Yes, I think we all know that feeling.
Yeah. It's been such a weird kind of couple of weeks in general. But anyway, let's get straight on into it. So tell us a little bit about your story and a bit about your mission when you set out traveling.
Sure. Well, I started off as an attorney. I actually was practicing law up until just a few years ago when I decided to go full-time as a travel blogger. But what really sparked my interest in travel was a 12 trips in 12 months challenge that I took the year before my 30th birthday because I wanted to send out my 20s in style, having spent so much time studying and doing, kind of the responsible thing. I wanted to do something a little irresponsible and a little bit just frivolous. And for me, to celebrate and to be young and crazy, including taking sick leave to go on hot air balloon rides at an international festival and to be on a live taping of The Chew at Epcot. So there were a lot of different experiences that I had that I definitely don't regret. And after that year, I wrote my first book on affordable flights. And that is what led me to actually transition into being a full-time travel blogger because I saw that I could make money online and I had that small proof of concept just in showing me that I would be able to make a transition. I was already teaching English online, so I had that kind of as an hourly salary and something to fall back on because I had been doing that in the mornings before going to work to fund all of my trips that year. But having that proof of concept with my own book that I self-published showed me that I could be this digital entrepreneur in addition to just kind of a remote employee, and it opened all new doors for me, and that's how I ended up where I am today.
Amazing, and highly recommend going and checking out your books. I found them on Amazon, but people can find them on your website as well.
Yes, you'll find the links on there to Amazon, and if there's anything else that you want to see, like I'm working on audiobooks now, so I'm always open to feedback in terms of new formats that people are interested in.
Amazing. Are you still teaching English now?
No. So I stopped teaching English, I would say maybe about a year into being a full-time travel blogger as I transitioned into other income streams. And I'm happy that that was the case because I actually believe that the company I worked for, VIP Kid, now is having some problems with their foreign tutors because of regulations in China saying that you can't have foreign tutors for local education or something of the sort. So I'm happy that I was able to transition out of that before that went away. And I think that that's kind of that false sense of security that people get with a steady paycheck. And I think I had that definitely with VIP Kid, even though I knew I was getting paid less than what I could potentially earn doing other things. I felt secure knowing that I had something I was doing regularly that was going to submit a regular paycheck. But in reality, there's no security there because now, look, that's not an opportunity I would have had available to me at this point in time. I would have had to find an alternative anyway. And I just think that it's actually better to diversify your income streams and to have lots of different eggs in your basket versus relying on that kind of one quote unquote steady paycheck that may leave or something may happen at any point in time to that. So it was really interesting to have that mindset shift and to see how that turned out. And I'm grateful that I was able to find other ways to monetize my online brand and presence to make up for the absence in that income with VIP Kid.
Do you mind explaining this? That makes total sense. And I think that's like advice as old as time, right? Is to diversify your income. So if, even if pre-pandemic, that was such a huge piece of advice that everybody was talking about, but obviously now more than ever, it's so crucial. Would you mind just telling us, or just listing off what your multiple incomes are?
Absolutely. So I completely agree with you. I think that it's a phrase that's very can be cliche, but really it's something that I didn't understand until I made the transition to full-time entrepreneur and saw that initially I had that craving, kind of, you want to go back to what you know and the familiar. Mm-hmm. And so I had moments where I was so frustrated and I just wanted to be back at a regular paycheck and back at something that I wasn't kind of not knowing what was coming the next month and constantly having to pitch and be on the go. And so that's something that now I realize was a limited way of thinking. And I've learned from a lot of self-development books, a lot of money management books, that the way to get wealthy is by being your own boss in some way, by having investments, by having passive income streams, by having active income streams, by having different, companies that you found yourself, or different business models that you are the head of. And that's really the way to amass money beyond just this amount that you're limited to every month in a paycheck. Even if you get a raise, it just doesn't make the kind of difference that having multiple income streams make. And that's something I realized when I started teaching online, because even if I had gotten a raise as an attorney, let's say a $5,000 or $10,000 raise, it wouldn't have come out to much more monthly. And with teaching online, I was able to make, an extra $2,000 a month or so in my spare time. And that was something that did come out to actually be substantial and help me travel more. So I was able to see the benefits of having multiple income streams. And so now, to answer your question, some of my income streams include self-publishing books, ads on my website, speaking engagements, at times webinars or consultations that I will hold myself. I have like online courses and different products that I offer. It's hard to always think of them off the top of my head.
It's certainly varies.
Because it's hard to keep track of all of them. But there's so many. And I would say, brand partnerships, that's a big one. And so that's, I would say, the main ones that I'm able to monetize. And I try to pick which ones are being the most lucrative. Like brand partnerships can be very lucrative, but they're also active, meaning that you have to put in a lot of time and hours into making that money. Freelance writing is another one. Freelance travel writing for different outlets. That's another one that can be very time consuming, because you have to pitch different outlets constantly. You have to actually write the article. You're waiting months to have it be printed or for you to be paid. So it can be really difficult to pursue some of these different methods. And I try to find which ones are giving me the most money with the most ease and then capitalize off of that. So brand partnerships are one, even though they're active, but things like traffic and revenue to my website that I monetize with ads through Mediavine, that's one of my favorite income streams because it's done on blog posts that I've already published, and it's on content that I've already created. So I don't feel the need to constantly be creating new things. I mean, obviously you want to update your blog, but it's just not the same kind of pressure or deadline that you have as when you're part of a campaign and have deliverables due. So it depends, I think, and it depends on the person and what you find works best for you. But I would try to identify which income stream you enjoy and then try to narrow it down more so that you're really focusing the bulk of your time on those that make you the most money.
Amazing insights in there. And what I'm kind of getting, and feel free to disagree, but it's almost like a kind of, instead of the age-old earning money for your time, it's earning money for value instead. It's kind of an old switch up when you start going freelance and remote.
Exactly. Absolutely. And that's why freelancers do such a good job, because they're able to, especially those that can kind of crank it out or outsource or just get it down to a science, how they produce content. If they build it up, they can have their own mini empire, digital empire, with very little hands-on managing of it day to day required. So there's a lot of possibilities. And I think that when you don't take that leap, it's because you're scared that you won't be paid as a freelancer because you won't have enough value to provide. And that's a mental block that people really have to get over. People thinking that the market's already so saturated that there's no way to stand out, that it makes it difficult to find clients, that it makes it difficult to keep clients, that you have to offer your services highly discounted. All of these are a lot of mental blocks that keep people in that safety kind of security blanket of working for a salary, because they don't want to have to deal with them and they don't want to have to tackle those hurdles. And it can be really challenging to have to face all of that comes with being an entrepreneur. So it's not for everybody, but it can be really rewarding and it can provide you with more financial freedom and more, freedom with how you spend your time than anything else. And that's why I do advocate for freelancing, for starting your own online business, for being an entrepreneur of any sorts, for doing investments, for starting passive income streams as a side hustle. I think all of those are smart money moves and are moves that we should be exploring more of because none of us are getting any younger, We gotta start amassing our millions now.
Very true that. But that's something that seems to have come up a lot. And I found that I get asked that question, especially now, because I'm 3 years into my freelance journey. And while it was sort of something, having that kind of resilience and that tenacity was already something that I sort of had, having built that up from project management full time and doing communication strategy full time. So in a way, I'm still nervous when I started, but I kind of already had this knowledge of I know what I'm like when I'm dealt with a challenge. Did you have something similar, or was that something that you kind of had to learn for yourself when you took the leap?
No, I took a lot of comfort in my degree and in knowing that in worst case scenario, I had paid, $200,000 or so for a law degree that should afford me the opportunity to be gainfully employed at any point in time. Right. Most law firms, I would say 70% of them are just kind of turnover law firms that are constantly hiring and constantly having new people. And so maybe not the most desirable places to work, but easy to get employed there. So I think I knew and I had that sense of job security in knowing that I may not like the first job available, but I could certainly find a job available doing kind of mundane front work, paperwork, attorney stuff. So I took that as a consolation because now I don't use my expensive degree and I maybe didn't need it. But so I try to find what are the pros. And I think having that as something to fall back on, having my title to use if I ever need to, sign off on agreements, negotiate contracts with brands, things of the sort, that really helps me. So it helps me gain credibility when I'm trying to be featured in different outlets. So there are always pros. And I think education was my fallback specifically and how I was able to gain that confidence in going freelance. And then it also took a big humility, spoon to just have to sit there and go from telling people, what do you do? I'm an attorney to what do you do? I teach English online. So there were actually months where I didn't even share that with people. And I was just trying to talk about my travel blogging because it seemed embarrassing to go from practicing law to doing a $20 online teaching gig. And so it was something, and I have a lot of respect for teachers and I have a lot of respect for people that do digital nomad jobs. And I understand how difficult it is. And really the kids are amazing. And my mom is a teacher. So I just think that it was something where I had so much prestige associated with being an attorney and being the first person in my family to be an attorney and to graduate from this, from law school and all of that, that it felt like just leaping into this field of the unknown digital world was a big, scary monster to tackle. And so I still dealt with it for a long time, even after seeing initial signs of success. My TED Talk I had by the end of that year that I turned full time, my first one, I've published, multiple books since then. I won an award with my first book, which was all encouraging things along the way that should have maybe kept me thinking I'm on the right path. But I still found myself searching LinkedIn postings to be I don't know, should I apply to work at NBC doing copywriting for $30,000 a year or something ridiculous? And that I didn't want to do, but I would still, for some reason, just go. And old habits would, and old insecurities would always rear their head. So I would say it's until just recently where I've really begun embracing what I do, embracing the uncertainty that comes with it, feeling certain and living in more abundance rather than scarcity. So being certain that I'm going to have opportunities continue to come my way, that things are only going to get better. And that's taken a lot of internal practice and self-work that thankfully we've had a lot of downtime during the pandemic to just devote to being your best self. So,
oh yes. Sorry. Don't we all know it?
It's kept me cheery, just to kind of listen to positive things, to tune out the gloomy news and to really work on trying to change my mindset, trying to get out of my own way when it comes to making money, when it comes to taking my business to the next level, when it comes to dealing with competition. I think we, especially at this time and with the scarcity mindset and with the idea that there's so little to go around, and it can happen very often to freelancers who feel like they have to compete for a job. We see other people have wins and then we automatically think, why not us? Instead of thinking, that's amazing that great for them and I'm next, that kind of mindset, and cheering on the people that you see do good things, because the more that you cheer something on, the more likely it is that it's going to come to you versus you sitting there and resenting other people for having it. So these are all things that I think you have to work on as an entrepreneur if you're not going to lose your mind. Otherwise, you will let the insecurities and the constant comparison and the numbers game and how many followers do you have and how many views do you have and how much money did you get paid?
Yeah, but also the people around you, I found as well, because that for me has, it's not that my wider community has necessarily changed. I found over the last 3 years for me, it's been about who is close to me, I guess. Like who is like, how they say like you are a product of the 5 people closest to you. I think that's something that's come up massively for me, especially in the last couple of years, because it's like if you've got, a core group of people who will hype you up no matter what. Like on your down days, they'll say, right, okay, I hear you, but let's go. I think that has made a massive difference to how I approach my work as well. I can't tell if it's the pandemic or if it's just simply that I have adjusted my kind of approach accordingly, like my freelance, not plan, but my freelance mentality, I guess, accordingly, to surround myself with people who are like, you can do this, rather than people who tell me I'm weird for doing something that's not very normal, I say with kind of, in quotes, air quotes. Would you agree?
Yes, and your income will actually also be determined by the 5 people that you most associate with. You'll vary like by 20% or so, but it helps to just associate yourself with amazing people in this space. Thankfully, I think in the travel blogging space, there are so many really talented, wise, generous people that want to share their knowledge, that want to connect with you. I've been able to meet a lot of them at conferences. I'm friends with many through Facebook groups and social media platforms. So I think that it's easy to find community if you know where to look and if you're as active in the community as what you hope to get out of it. So I think that those are both really important things. I know a lot of people that are bloggers and have never been to a travel blogging conference, whereas I'll go to maybe 2 or 3 a year. So the first one can seem intimidating, but then the more you go to, it really is like catching up with old friends. And it's nice to have a community of people that you can chat with. I've had mastermind groups this past year of just other female bloggers that know what I'm doing. I've had here where I live, we have a lady bosses group that meets every month, and we have a book club, and all of these are amazing kind of CEO women, and we're reading books that are meant to challenge us. And so it absolutely helps to have a community and not do things alone, and more so now than ever.
No, completely agree. So just thinking about kind of your day-to-day or your average week, what does that look like for you then?
Most of the time I'm home. I do like to have a home base. I know other people get a thrill of digital nomad life, but I find I get really anxious when I'm living out of a suitcase and I don't have space for the souvenirs I want to buy, and things are not straight, or, they're really wrinkled, or I don't have any one particular tool I would have at the house that I don't have there, or all my equipment. So I do like to have a home base. And for me, that is Puerto Rico. It has been for the last 2 years. They have generous tax policies here for digital nomads, and I was born on the island, so it was a natural fit. I really enjoy being here, even though it has its pros and cons, but I live in a community, as I mentioned, that has a lot of digital nomads and people that are doing e-commerce and courses and podcasts. And so all kinds of people here that are great to connect with. So that's where I'm based. And I think day to day, I would be here. I would be doing some kind of writing. I would wake up, I'd do self-development work, some kind of audiobook or podcast I'd listen to get my mindset right, do some kind of affirmation, set my goals for the day. Then from there, I would go work out. I would come back and have breakfast, and then I try to knock out my most pressing project right away when I have the most energy. So if that's writing an article, let's do that day. If that's, writing a blog post, if that's reviewing something, if it's producing content, I would try to get that knocked out earlier. I would maybe have some meetings during the afternoon, possibly meeting with, an opportunity or a different PR person, any kind of meetings, podcast interviews. And then I would do a lot of social media heavy interaction at night, because I feel like that's when I would have more of a bandwidth for it and can kind of zone out and do that for hours mindlessly a little bit. And then from there, I try to set my goals for the next day, see what I didn't accomplish, see what really needs to be put at the top of that priority list. And that's my day to day. And then I have it interspersed with a lot of local trips, a lot of press trips, a lot of conferences. So I could be taking on a regular, situation, usually 2 to 4 trips a month. With the pandemic, it has slowed, but it started up again this last half of 2021. So I was able to take, I would say, at least a dozen trips during that time. And I expect to still be traveling pretty consistently in 2022. So that's what my routine consists of.
Love it. Amazing. And you talked about affirmations. You also have been super on it chatting about vision boards. And I saw today that you've just posted your 2022 one. Do you want to tell us a bit about that? But also what stuck out for me also is how you want to look after, kind of do more self-care and looking after your mind as well. So do you want to talk us through a little bit about that and what you're maybe like, not necessarily your solid plan, but kind of some things you'd like to aim for this year?
Absolutely. I was actually new to vision boarding. The first time I did one was in the beginning of 2021, but it was because I was sitting there, I think, in the middle of the pandemic. And that's what pushed me to try all these new things, like dancing on TikTok in April of 2020, and trying the vision board. Because why not? I mean, the sky is falling. So what do we got to lose? And I also had just finished reading an audiobook listening to an audiobook by Jen Ruiz on where she mentioned that a vision board was like an arts and crafts project with the universe. And so I love arts and crafts. I love projects. I was a big nerd in school, and that really got my attention. So I decided to just go that day, get a board and do it. And I really put a lot of intention into the images that I cut out. It felt like I was finding images that were uniquely tailored to me and the things that I was looking for. And then I just put that all down on the board. And to my surprise, a good amount of them came true in a lot of surprising ways. From getting a literary agent to becoming part of the Point Sky Travel Advisory Panel, where I had a stipend to travel anywhere. And I had the words, travel anywhere literally on my board. So a lot of different really great things that came out of it. And so this year I figured, why not? If the woo-woo stuff works, why fix it if it's not broken? May as well keep it up. So I actually hear that you're supposed to kind of write down what happened and your gratitude on the old vision board, kind of seal that up, put it aside, and then get the new vision board ready. I did have it in a place where it was readily visible every day while I was working. I did think about the images a lot, and I would just stop and think about them and picture my life with these things that I wanted. And then they just started manifesting themselves in all different ways. A good amount of my board, I'd say like 70% of it came true. And I think the rest of it's on its way to coming true. And just maybe a year was a ambitious time. I had my boyfriend falling in love, like the wedding and children all in one year. And I feel like that's a little rush. But we accomplished the first part, I think we're on our way to the second. And that's an example of how with my first vision board, I'm realizing how it comes to you and what goals to put on there. Similarly, to go from agent to book deal to having this top book was a lot was going to happen in the first year. But I was very happy to find that I had, taken significant steps in that regard. So I'm very happy with how it came out. I'm excited for this new vision board and what 2022 will hold. And I just don't think that you lose anything by trying it, right? Even if you think it's silly, why not? We're talking about your dreams. So would that not merit you doing something a little silly or trying something outside the box? Because why not? If it helps you get what it is that you want in life, give it a shot. And so for me, mindset, visualization, affirmations, all of that has been really important. And I do believe in energy. And I think that I've had a different energy since that happened. And since I've really started investing in myself development. And I'm seeing more and more opportunities come to me without me having to fight for it so much, right? People want to recommend me to things when you're a pleasant person rather than when you're sitting there constantly wondering why it's not your turn. And these are really hard things to overcome because they're healings that we have, but a lot can happen, and you kind of need to work on your self-development constantly if you're going to be a freelancer or an online business owner, because you're constantly going to have imposter syndrome, and you're constantly going to feel like you made a mistake, or you should go back to the safety blanket of a steady salary. And you need to have that mindset of like, no, you're doing amazing. Your talents are like much needed and in demand, and you are uniquely you. Like, you need that. So unless you,
I feel like, especially with things like vision boards as well, or having, for me, I use Pinterest boards now because obviously I'm on the move so much, but it's just about keeping, and this is the project management nerdy side of me coming out, but when you're working on a project or you're trying to aim for something, you need something to kind of remind you of that, right? It's kind of like, oh yeah, I'm on track, or oh, maybe I could work on a bit of this today. Like, oh yeah, I said I was going to do this. Okay, let's keep the vision alive as well.
Yes, I totally agree with you. Accountability helps, and that's where it helps to have a community, helps to announce your goals to your community and kind of what it is that you're hoping to do in general, so that people know what you're working on and you don't just back out of it. If you say you're going to write a book, tell people you're going to write a book so that they know to expect your book, and you can't just stop writing it now because you know that you already told people you were writing it. Yeah. So accountability really helps, and your community can go a long way towards that.
Completely. And just going back to self-care, like what kind of things do you do, or are you maybe hoping to implement in 2022? Because I feel like that's a big thing that comes up for freelancers. There's, especially now that we're coming out of this sort of hustle, boss girl kind of era, and we're trying to be more aware of how we treat ourselves, like, and when we're working, and even just the work-life balance in general. What are some of the things that you try to keep yourself doing, or something you do for yourself?
Definitely fitness routinely. I think that's really important. And treating myself to good foods. That's another thing. I've tried to upgrade the quality of the food I'm eating. So you don't necessarily have to go on these crazy diets, but I do advocate for getting the better version of what it is you're eating. So instead of getting these processed foods and these processed sugars, getting these kind of natural 100% honey versus like the extract or the other substances, or 100% maple sugar versus like the regular stuff that they give you. So it just helps to upgrade what it is that you're putting into your body, because ultimately that's your fuel. Fitness is really important because it's going to keep you sane, and it's going to keep your posture good as somebody that's going to be hunched over for long periods of time over your computer. And in general, I would say relationships of some sort. So it's also important, like you said, to have a community of people that you can go to when things get rough, that you want to just vent and that you want to share or get insights from. I think that's really helpful, and it can make you feel like you're not alone. And that's where going to conferences, joining these Facebook groups, developing masterminds can make all the difference in terms of you actually enjoying being a freelancer, or you dreading doing it every day and just returning to a job that you didn't like, kind of deflected, thinking, oh, that didn't work out.
Amazing. Just taking a couple steps back. Obviously, you kind of started your journey when you were 30. Is there anything that you would give, like any advice you would give 20-year-old Jen about taking this lifestyle? And also, is there anything you would maybe tell 30-year-old Jen knowing what you know now?
Sure. So the impetus for this journey was the year before my 30th birthday, but I had done some traveling beforehand. I'd spent a summer in Sydney, Australia by myself. That kind of sparked my love for solo travel. And I'd gone with my mom for 2 weeks after high school to Europe, that I ended up leading our trip versus going with the organized tour that she had booked, because I realized I could do the trip better than the organized tour. So both of the things, I think, prepped me for ultimately taking travel more seriously, and it sparked my interest in it overall. So I would say advice that I would give 30-year-old Jen, or I would say 20-year-old Jen, I would tell her to enjoy more and stop being so self-conscious. I think I've always been a perfectionist in so many ways. And so I think like I've never really taken all the bikini pictures because I thought I didn't look as attractive in the bikini. And then afterwards you realize that you will never be that skinny again in your life. And so you should have taken the picture. And so that's what I would tell her, like be less self-conscious. Just take the picture, live in the moment, do the things, and don't worry so much about how you look to the world. And then beyond that, I would say to 30-year-old Jen, I would probably just tell her to get excited, because the journey is going to have a lot of surprises. And I think that she was a lot more scared than excited going into this transition. So I would just tell her to anticipate it eagerly, because there's lots of good things in store.
I think that's a motto for life, really. Get excited. Get excited. I think that's what I can apply for myself. Get excited. And also we talked a bit about making money already in the ways that you're doing already. And I love just how many there are. Like, it's like, I feel like people think that there's just not like that many opportunities, but with the internet today, now more than ever, I swear, you can make money doing so much. So Jen, final question from me. What would your top kind of pieces of advice be for people who are hoping to take the remote leap in 2022?
I would say, first and foremost, work on your mindset. Make sure that you feel ready to take the leap. And I think you can do that with so many small steps every day. Just reading books to help become more knowledgeable in your trade, listening to podcasts, finding other people that have done the leap so that you can better follow them and see what they're doing and be in their footsteps. I think that really helps you get ready to take the leap. I think once you do take the leap, it would help to have a community of people that you can rely on for when things get rough, because they will. And I think that the quicker that you find that community, the easier your journey will be. And beyond that, I would recommend that you persist, because nothing is ever an instant hit. Even though it looks like it, even though it may seem like an overnight success, all of these overnight successes have worked for years to get there. And it takes a little bit of time. It can take you less time if you network with the right people, if you invest in the right learning and the right tools, but it still takes time to grow a following. It takes time to get clients. It takes time to build your testimonials, your reputation. It takes time. And so I would recommend that you not get discouraged by the first couple of obstacles that you face and think that that's a sign that you're not meant to do it. It's just a sign that you're doing it right. You're going to come across obstacles. It's a sign that you're growing. It's a sign that you're challenging yourself. So don't be easily deterred, and understand that everybody that's been successful has had to go through the same thing. Like Nas Daily talks a lot about, he did a 1,000-day kind of video challenge, and he talks a lot about how at like day 150 or something, he was just feeling so dejected, and he'd seen that this other random, cat video on YouTube got 10 million views, and his barely got 10. And he was just going to sit there and cry about it that day instead of making another video. I don't know if it was a cat video specifically, but some other video that really didn't have a lot of substance. And he obviously works to make his very substance heavy. And so he was going to not just give up. And he decided to do a video again that day, because if he missed it that day, he'd miss it the next day. He would not keep up with the challenge that he set for himself. And so even though it seemed like it wasn't working, even though it seemed like people weren't responding, he still kept going. And now he's one of the most successful content creators out there. So that's a common story that you'll find amongst a lot of successful people, especially in the online space. It may take you a while to find what distinguishes you. Even if you are an instant hit right off the bat, and like the guy that started asking about people who drive luxury cars on TikTok, what they do for a living, and like instantly went to like 5 million. The new money lawyer that just went, she's at like 7 million in her first 2 months on TikTok. And so there's a bunch of people that it seems like they have really rapid growth and success, but even they're going to be facing challenges you don't know about. They may have problems monetizing. They may have problems, building out staff or figuring out how to do things. It just takes time. So be kind to yourself and persist, and just know that just showing up is a big part of the battle in and of itself. And I wish you all luck on your journey.
Beautiful. Love that. It's not if you make it, it's when you'll make it.
Exactly.
Love
Exactly. And understand that your definition of making it doesn't have to be like this arbitrary threshold of 1 million people. Like you'll find little ways that you're making it along the way with a really satisfied client or a really heartwarming testimonial or a lovely gift that somebody gives you that you didn't expect, but is so touching. There's lots of ways that you're going to be encouraged along the way if you're on the right path, and you're going to see that your work is appreciated. And it doesn't have to be just these arbitrary standards of awards or this many followers or anything like that. So I hope that you can find the joy and the rewards every day in your work, and that you continue trying to be a better version than you were the day before.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Remote Life, and thank you, Jen, for your awesome insights. You can find links to her website and socials below. Tag Jen at Jen on a Jet Plane and myself, Han, at Han Meets World, and let us know if you're taking the remote leap this year. You can also find the podcast on Instagram at The Remote Life Podcast. Thank you so much again for listening, and we can't wait to remote work with you again soon.